start the second session going forward. Thank you.
All right, that's great. I'm still walking around the room trying to find people. In the meantime, I think we can try and, get a bit orderly and prepare for the next sessions this afternoon. And on this table, how's the learning event going for you? What would you like to see in the afternoon session?
It's me or my colleague here? No, it's. I'm sorry that I've missed the first day, but the second day it's quite impressive for me. So the event is you can learn a lot. So that's from me.
All right. Okay. He picked you, so you might have to tell us how the event is going for you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Simon. Yeah, I'm interested in networking with business advisory support services for purposes of raising funds. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's great. I'm trying to spot a few ladies and get a bit of their voices as well to this. Hello, how are you? I'd like you to tell us, how's the event going? What would you like to see in the afternoon session?
Thank you very much. My name is Lucy Mite. I work with Kim as a gender specialist. In the afternoon, the event has gone very well. It's been interesting conversations. In the afternoon, when we'll be looking at the relationship between BASP and FIs, I'm interested in that conversation as we expound on access to financing, and especially for women entrepreneur associations. And it would be interesting to hear how BASP and financial institutions are working together to ensure that that's strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think one more lady, then we can call the room entirely to order. Hello, how are you? Tell us, how's the event going for you? What would you like to see in the afternoon sessions?
Hello, my name is Felista. The company I run is SoftLink Options. We design web applications. I found the meeting very enlightening, especially in the area of partnerships and how various organizations work with each other to build a greater Kenya. I'm really looking forward to the afternoon session, especially on how the business advisory services providers are working to provide services to different businesses in this country. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think that's a good place to set the pace. Sam, are we ready to transition into the next part? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the room for the afternoon sessions. My name is Luri Tugusuk, and I have been your facilitator for the day, and we are now moving to the last part of the learning event. And really just to give a very tiny background is that the Kenya Investment Mechanism has been forging partnerships between BASPs and financial institutions to simply transform the financial ecosystem where both BASPs and FIs are working together with SMEs in a seamless way that gives back to all of them. And these efforts are entirely contributing to an efficient, a functional, and a very constructive national financial ecosystem at large. With that said, I just want to reiterate on the digital engagement. We are using the hashtag USAID came learning event, hashtag to invest in Kenya, talk to us. So I'm hoping that during this session we can all tweet as much as we can, share the engagement online, and try and get people to understand what Kim is doing about BASPs and FIs. That said, I'm now going to welcome the session, and that is the current panel discussion on forging sustainable partnerships between business advisory service providers, which is mostly denoted as BASPs, and financial institutions, that is the FIs. To take us through this panel discussion, allow me to introduce our moderator for the session, Ms. Regina Gasheri. Over the years, she has worked on various projects in studio production and live outside productions. This has honed her skills as a television program's producer, and director. As a business news reporter and anchor, she endeavors to keep demystifying business technical jargon and give business news reporting a human interest angle, making it simple and easy to understand. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Psychology, and she is the current senior business reporter and television host at Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. That said, let's give a round of applause to Regina. Okay, Regina, the room looks a bit settled. Are you ready for this session?
Yes, we are. We're talking
Then you can take it from there.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be here. I know it's after lunch. You're tempted to catch a snooze or two. So we'll try and make it very interactive. Besides, we're talking about sustainability. And when I hear sustainability, I'm looking at it from a business angle. There is no investor who is going to put their money where they're not going to get their returns. So, talking about sustainability and, forging these partnerships, BASPs and FIs, targeting MSMEs and SMEs at a time where, especially here locally, we're talking about building back better. So I'd want to introduce my panel that is going to help us understand how we're going to forge sustainable partnerships between FIs and BASPs. Is none other. Calling to the podium, let's start with the gentleman this afternoon. We have Oscar Anyona, who is a founder of Swaso Consultancy. Kindly give him a round of applause as he takes to the podium. Let's take the first here, next to me, please. Karibu sana. Thank you for your time. Next on my panel is a lady, none other than Catherine Gitonga, who is a Chief Executive Officer at Smart Regional Consultants. Kindly give her a round of applause as she takes to the podium. Asante sana. Madam CEO, thank you for taking time. Karibu sana. Further on in this panel, I'd want to introduce yet another lady. Yes, we talk about, gender equity, affirmative action and such. Well, we're about to see this witnessed in this particular panel. I'd want to introduce Hannah Gakuya, who is a Relationships Manager, Partnerships and Ecosystems Banking at Equity. That's where the money is at. We are actually seeing an FI walking up to this particular panel. Asante sana, madam. Thank you very much for your time. As you take a seat, let's give her a round of applause, please. And last but not least, to make this panel complete, I'd want to bring forth a gentleman. This is none other than Bonano Badia, the Chief Credit Officer, Agricultural Finance Corporation. Asante sana as you walk. Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause as he takes to the podium, please. When you're talking about matters of climate change, this is a person we need to all have a sit down with, especially if you're talking about matters of agriculture. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Karibuni sana. Now, more than often, we have a disconnect between information and financial institutions. At the end of this particular session, we'd want to have the requisite information that is going to ensure that MSMEs, who we're calling business, because now they're business, giving us business too, because at the end of the day, you're not going to invest where there's no return. So let's start us off is you, Mr. Oscar Anyona, where we come from the mountain, the N and the D have a disconnect. So kindly, pardon me for that. We are the people who say we come Mbas. We are the Mbas people. Now, what has been your experience, as a BASP working within the Lakeside region? And what have been your key lessons in these 4 years that this particular program has been underway?
Yes. Yes. Thanks a lot. It has been a good day. And going by the experience that we've been having when we work with the financial institutions, initially it used to be a bit challenging, but going forward at least we have managed to get into the products that they give out, products that they sell to the market. Because the disconnect that existed before was the products are there, but the public, the targeted customers, are not aware of the products that are there. So by us coming in, we acted as somehow an extension of giving whatever they have in the institution to the public, so that it is now becoming easy for even the public to know, the SMEs to know whatever is available in the financial institution as per the intake of what they want. So initially the information was not so well, but by BSPs, BAS, we're getting involved in the KIM project. We are getting now a change and a shift in how the products are being accepted in the business world. So the collaboration that we're having with the financial institution is making it now even possible and even at least acceptable. Because initially we would find that the business community, the SMEs, they will go with a fixed mind that I need this amount. Now this amount, if he's not able to get that amount, he will say that I've not been able to be assisted. But with us, before you even reach at the amount that they want, what we do, we first do what is called the need analysis. The need analysis will give us an insight of what the SME needs. Sometimes they will find that they're looking for money, but what they need is not money. What they need is just a capacity building to make them use the already available assets that they have to change whatever they want. So before we take them to the financial institution, we have to know, what do they need? We have to know, what do they need? Do they really need money, or do they only need a management advice so that they can work on what they need for? But after we have realized that the amount they need, we have to advise based on the benefit that they're going to get on that money. So
very well said. So you've already addressed the issue of lack of information. Now that we have the project, or rather the product, they may not necessarily need the finance. Let's bring in the financial institutions. Madam Hannah Kakuya, there's a mic to your end. Just press, long press. We are on. Now this question is about, how then do these MSMEs package themselves, or what are you looking for from these MSMEs so that they can actually access that elusive financing?
Thank you. And as I was called, I'm Hannah, and from Equity Bank. And I'm in the Department of Food and Agriculture, so I think most of my questions I'll be basing them on that. And being in equity for the last almost 10 years, have been very interesting working with farmers, and especially small-scale farmers, because that is where we thrive. And I will say now we are no longer there, but we are going to across the whole value chain, and we've realized we are not getting it right because of looking at individuals and not exactly looking at the whole ecosystem. So we have reverted to banking an ecosystem, and by that I say we start with an anchor and look at what is coming in and what is going out from the anchor. And I would say that when I'm looking into an MSME, I'm not exactly looking at the turnovers. I want to exactly understand if they understand their business. That is brought by experience. Have they worked in this sector space for some time to understand their business? How do they understand this business, and as where they are coming from, where they are, and are they looking into the future in this business? Because we do not want to invest in a business that does not have a future. So I would say, other than the other things we look for, turnovers, are they credit worthy and all that, I want to know, are they understanding? And by that I want to say that we have come from the transactional based lending to the relationship-based lending. Yeah.
Relationship-based lending, and that's where BASFs come in. So, Madam Catherine Gitonga, drawing from your background, with the heightened growth of prospects in SMEs and SMEs, how do we package them effectively to get that financial aid that they require?
Thank you. So, I have to say for us, our expertise is in Northern Kenya packaging SMEs, as well as the rest of Kenya. And I'll speak to the thin markets there. And by packaging SMEs, one thing we look at is what financial institutions are looking to support SMEs in certain value chains like agriculture and small crops or small animals, as well as climate smart agriculture. So we look in the market for the kind of financial institutions that support that kind of lending. And I have to say one of them is, Agricultural Finance Corporation, Equity Bank is also in that kind of line. Then we package the SME to fit the needs of the financial institutions as well as the needs of the SME itself. So like Oscar was saying, if the SME is looking for too much money that they can handle, as a BASF, we advise them to reduce that and get the money in a tiered manner. But as well, work with the SME to also strengthen them to get the next batch of money to do that. So it's important to package the SME to fit that market. Something else I can say is SMEs are also, financial institutions are also considered as SMEs, the larger SMEs, and we've also worked with AFC to package the financial institution to access finance for on-lending to SMEs. And successfully, we've had a $5 million transaction doing that. But we also considered, AFC as a transaction that we needed to package again to fit the market. So we looked for the impact fund that fitted the bill for AFC and did the packaging to do that linkage. So both sides worked. Yeah.
5 billion. That's quite a huge amount. I can see you nodding from the far end, Bonano Badia there, the Chief Credit Officer, Agricultural Finance Corporation. What has been your lessons, especially now, lending, focusing on ourselves and on matters of agriculture?
Thank you very much. My name is Bonano, working for AFC. AFC is a slightly unique institution, and unique in the sense that it is a development bank and slightly different from how commercial banks run their business. We pick the slightly risky segments of the market and prepare them to participate into commercial banking. And in this space, what we have realized mostly is information asymmetry. There is what we as financial institutions require, and there is what is perceived to be the requirement of the financial institutions by these clients. There is therefore a missing middle, and this missing middle, this is where the BSPs come in. And the role of this BSPs is to prepare these clients and to prepare them to a level where then you can participate. And I would give examples where we have participated with SRC, for instance. We had always had a perception that the Northern Kenya is extremely risky, and most financial institutions actually have that perception that the Northern Kenya is very risky. Having a partner then that understands that segment very well, we were able to prepare these SMEs, and not only prepare them, but prepare from the point of enterprises that they were participating to, and creating a feedback loop so that producers would have a market and that market would have an eventual market, and connecting these segments within the mainstream markets of the country, for instance in beef. And what we have seen in segments where we would traditionally not look at, these segments have actually proven to be profitable and to be paying their facilities, maybe even better than the traditional ones that we had been looking at. So it is just about information asymmetry and this missing middle, and how then we connect this missing middle.
Now, when it comes to the issue of liquidity, FIs, we're looking to FIs to solve the question of liquidity. They're very good at actually loaning, but are they as good as that in terms of mobilizing those funds? Let's start off with you, Bonana.
I will talk from the perspective of AFC and how we were before we participated with some of these PSPs. We had our trials in the international markets, sourcing for these funds to take to the very risky segments where no one would look at. Truthfully, we were not prepared, and it had to take the hand of a BSP to take us through issues of compliance, to take us through issues of taxation, to take us through issues of governance. And out of that particular experience, certain doors started opening. And it is on realization of that we actually accessed funding, and the experience that we had with the BSP preparing our pipeline, and on the other end also preparing the sourcing of funds. We were able to connect a farmer in Marsabit to funding in the United States, which ordinarily that loop would not have been completed. So we believe that that is a role that is there, and that is a role that we should look at this BSPs from the perspective of preparing your pipelines, but also from the perspective of connecting financial institutions to capital that is specific to certain thin areas of the economy that need participation and need to be brought up.
Well, I see Oscar here nodding in regard to that, specificities, the connections that BASP provides, not only between FIs and also their clients, but also giving it a bigger scope. We're not talking just about local, we're also going global. What's your take on that?
It's true that with the SPs and the SMEs and financial institutions, if we work together, it is possible that most of the SMEs who are not having the knowledge of the product that they have will be able to access them through the BSPs, because the working relationship that we have developed, first we go as much as understanding what are the products that these financial institutions are having before we even go to our customers. So when we speak with our customers, I'll listen to the customer approach, then from the discussion I'll know which financial institution is having a better product for the specific customer. Several financial institutions have different products and they can't apply across the board. So from the discussion we are having with our customers, SMEs, we know that if I take this pitch to specific financial institution, he will be able to assist it, not only in the access of the product, but also on the follow-up and some other capacity building that is going to be done through us. So that information is very relevant, and it helps us much in knowing where to go to when we have a specific need to tackle.
Madam Gakuya, what role can BASPs play to actually stem the rate of default when it comes to loans?
When it comes to loans, I would say that BASP, because I've understood what they are doing, though our customers might not have the information, is walking the customers through the journey of understanding the purpose of to which they are picking the money, to understand their financial analysis in their businesses. And once they have all this understanding and the BASP is able to coach them through, then they meet their purpose. Once they take the loan, they are very prepared when they are coming to the bank to have a facility. And once they meet the purpose, we find that 80% would be able to pay back, and so the default comes down big time. Yeah.
So if BASPs do their work, then the rate of default actually goes down. But then the issue of information. These people who are walking through your door, Madam Gakuya, do not know that there are other services that are out there to support them when it comes to affirmative action funds as well as credit guarantees and such. So how do you draw the line? How do you know who to tell what? And would that at some point, affect your business?
When it comes to the issue of guarantee, and especially for equity, I think it has been out there. Everybody is saying Dr. James Mwangi signing guarantees right, left, and center. And I would say the people around towns will have that information, but the people out there in the rural areas might not have the information. So we're going out. We have this partnership with MasterCard Foundation. We are building capacity for our customers and for non-customers. So we have gone out to train our customers totally free. They are not paying anything. So we have started this program of capacity building, and we are able to tell them that right now you can pick a loan even if you don't have that much collateral like we would have asked for. Right now, maybe if we need 100%, you could pick a loan of 60%. Then we understand that the guarantee is there, but it's risky to really let these customers know that there's a guarantee, because if the guarantee covers 40% of the facility I'm picking, then depending on the knowledge of the customer, they might decide to pay 60% and leave the 40% to be paid by the guarantor. So
that is quite risky. I'm sure the ones in the room are not planning to default on the loans that they already have on account of that piece of information.
So we choose to sell the benefits of the guarantee and not exactly talking about the guarantee. Yeah.
Very smart, very smart, very smart. Wants to get into a debt situation. Now, Madam Catherine, let's talk about emerging issues when it comes to, we have seen the globe is taking a beating. Now we're talking about uncertainties around the Russia-Ukraine war. We're also worried about upcoming elections that are just but 19 days away. When we talk about the current environment that we find ourselves in as far as business, the environment is concerned, and building back better, from where you sit, from a macro as well as a micro point of view. These linkages between BASPs and FIs, the trickle-down effect in MSMEs, are we feeling it?
I have to say yes on my part, because as a BASP, you can consider us as a repository of information. We know the financial institutions in the market, the venture funds, the PE funds in the market, and what they're offering. And we also know the SMEs in our pipeline, and we also know other BASPs that, that we work with. So when an issue like you get an SME that looks for climate financing, then we know who to link them to. And now, for example, what you're saying, we have drought coming up. So there are those who are already looking at that and linking to SMEs and looking for those SMEs. And sometimes you also get financial institutions that write to us asking if we have SMEs led by women or youth or persons with disability that are in agriculture and need this kind of financing. And a lot of this comes a lot from, venture capital firms, impact funds that are looking for, impact in those areas. So yes, as a BASP, we tend to be aware of current issues. And additional information I have to say is at the program, Kenya Investment Mechanisms, we have sessions as BASP where we're introduced to, a different array of financial institutions, impact investors. So we keep increasing our repository of information as a BASP.
Now that we have the DRC as part of the larger East African community, we are looking at that market, 90 million a market, and it seems very attractive in verbatim. But from where we sit right now, we're looking at our investments and the information that we're getting. And I want to focus on also Oscar's area of expertise working in the lakeside. The requisite information around investing, especially in the DRC right now. Are BASPs also looking at venturing in that and offering that service?
Yes, it's true. The information is now out regarding the investment that can be done in DRC. And as BASP, especially the ones that we operate on the other side, the information is still not yet very thorough on the ground, because some, they see them as summaries in the TVs. But on the reality, some don't even believe that they can happen. Remember, for somebody who's doing, started as a small scale operating, and the target maybe is in Kenya, then they see the opportunity that is opening. But now the information of how they can access that market becomes a bit limited. So as we do as we see the opening of the new area of DRC, there's also a lot as the BSPs that we have to do on the markets and on the SMEs that would want to venture in these areas that are outside Kenya. Apart from that, there's also, because DRC will be like exporting outside Kenya. The information regarding the exports, so the documentation and what is needed is also something that with us as BSP, we are trying to talk to our SMEs so that they don't see it as something that can deter them from expanding outside the Kenya. So with the DRC, with the other markets opening, it's also giving us an opportunity as BSPs to leverage on the information that has not been there so that it can be made easily accessible to the aspiring SMEs that want to capture the new markets.
Now, with that note, we are looking at the EAC, especially focusing on DRC Congo. That's a 90 million market there. We all know that the government has been working on giving incentives, especially those who are focused on matters of agriculture. The DRC Congo has already started an incentive where up to 1,000 acres of land is available to those large-scale farmers who are keenly interested in that. So that is something that we need to take up, especially as matters of agribusiness are concerned. I'd want to ask from the floor of the House if anyone has a question at this point, or do we continue with our panelists?
Are there any questions in the room? All right, I think I have a question actually, so I'm going to throw it on that side here. Looking at the nature of BASPs and financial institutions and all this at the same time, once the SME takes the leap from being an SME to a large business, does the partnership continue? Do you continue advising them? Do you continue keeping them on the, just walking with them the journey and ensuring that they are sustainable, independent, and all that at the same time? I think that would really be nice to know. Yeah, thank you.
Indeed, that's a very good question, because we know this conversation is very rife when we are looking for the funds, but after the funds, at the point of delivery, we disappear. At what point should that relationship terminate? Let's start off with Badia.
Thank you very much. I'd actually walk you through the journey and how it makes sense. Now, working with the BASP and just recognizing what the objectives are, the most important thing is mission alignment. And for that mission to be aligned, what we do as AFC is that the first level of screening is actually done by the BASP. On the basis of that, because you have a bigger program and the program objectives are very clear to you and the business advisory service provider, once the first level screening happens, then that pool of pipeline is then presented for funding. Now, the second level of screening would happen, and on the basis of that, you would pick clients who then have a very tight mission fit between the institution and the alignment of mission by the program itself. Now, remember, these are SMEs. The SMEs, they're small, so they're very risky, and they are also likely to falter. So the approach that we take is what is called supervised credit. We supervise that credit on the basis of milestones. So at the point of appraisal, we identify what these milestones are. What that does is that it gives you the opportunity to take corrective action at the point when you see a faltering, and probably also forestall a default when the exposure is still very small. Now you walk this journey and you finish it. It is likely that the SMEs who are small would become large actors. Now what happens, they fall into an umbrella of clients that we call anchors. So what an anchor would do, an anchor is, let's say, I would give an example, a processor, and they had walked the journey until where they got to processing. Now in our model is that they would pick smaller SMEs and walk with them the same journey through that supervised credit, and eventually you would have a pool of anchors who can therefore pick smaller SMEs. At the end of the program, you are able to demonstrate impact. Thank you.
Catherine, you want to add on to that?
I'll give it as a BAS perspective. So the issue is, let's say we start with a small SME, and our level SMEs is in that range, startup, small growth and scale SMEs. It is important for us to stick with the SME one because it's a commercial transaction. So it's each party is getting to get value. And what happens is a small SME, the BASP work involves packaging them to get the first tranche of finance that they need. But that is important it is important to stay with the SME, because at the small SME, it means they probably don't need, for example, to hire full-time staff, or operations need to be outsourced so that then they can affordably run the SME. After a while, and we work with them to monitor payment of the credit given, they get to the next level where then they've traded enough and can afford some full-time staff, and we continue working with them. So our BASP advisory work involves not just transaction advisory, but also operational advisory. And we work with them and support until they can grow and scale. So staying on with the SME throughout the life of the SME is actually something that as a BASP we do, because of the value that comes from both parties.
Madam Gakuye, let's speak to the fact that a majority of MSMEs, or rather SMEs, and financiers do not speak the same language. I'm not talking about the English, the Swahili, or even the Kikuyu, but they do not understand. How do we break down that jargon and break down that barrier? And what role do you think that BASPs can actually play to ensure that these persons, or rather these entities, are on the same platform?
I would say that I feel like BASPs will come to make our work easier, because like from Equity Bank, we walk the journey of the customer from the very beginning, and if I'm the officer, I'm going to take the client from application through to the end. As you can see nowadays, we have a program in the TV stations where we are trying to look at the impact we have created. So we did not only lend, but what impact did we create after lending? Have we grown with these customers? So I feel like when the BASPs come and they are willing to walk the journey with the customers, then we will not have a ball dropped anywhere, and we will grow with them. And finally, we can say that we've made an impact.
Vadia?
What we see as the biggest role of BASPs in this dialogue between financial institutions and SMEs not speaking the same language is when a BASP takes the role of an incubator and incubates a client who was not financially ready to a level that therefore you can walk a journey with. And this speaks to a relationship that has to have happened between that financial institution and that business advisory service provider. I would give an example. We are at the onset of running a fund for the youth out of college into agriculture, first of all without experience, and prepare them to participate into commercial banking. Now, this is a segment that ordinarily no one would look at. First of all, they are risky in themselves. The sector that they go into is risky, and there are certain things that you would not foresee. And unless they go through this incubation, there is no possibility that they would ever participate with a financial institution. So that is the relationship that we see with BASPs. On the flip side, if it were not for a business service provider, we would not be seated on this table today, because it is that relationship that we had with SRC that opened the doors for AFC with USAID and particularly KIMS. There's a level of preparation that has to go at the client level, but also upstream. Thank you.
Now, as a BASP, Oscar here, the issue of where you come in, imagine you've created, and what I'm going to borrow heavily from what Badia has said, that you need to have an agreement of sorts between FIs and BASPs. I don't know, are you willing to make it contractual, or is it going to be verbatim? In the event that you strike billions or your clients strike billions, will you charge them?
Thank you. I think this should be something that we can say should be a work in progress, because at the moment it's just a rapport that you create with the financial institution. There's no legal or any contractual agreement, but because of the realization of the importance of BSPs now in the facilitation of financial access, I believe that if you continue with the conversation, the respective bodies, you can be able to have now at least a legal or a contractual agreement, so that even if you worked at the branches far away from Nairobi, because mostly you will find that maybe some information might not be there at the branch, but now you have that contractual agreement. It makes it easy for that at least coordination and making the work easy for both sides. It will provide even the identification documents when you walk to a branch of a financial institution and introduce yourself. It will also make even the SMEs to at least understand what you are doing, because there are some that even before you explain to them and onboard them, you have to do a lot of discussion with the management. So going forward into this kind of engagement, having something like a contractual agreement that will make it easy for both the BSPs and also the financial institution in whichever branch that now we work in.
What I'm hearing, oh yeah, you want to add something, Madam Kashri? Go ahead.
I want to add weight onto that and speak specifically to the fact that as BASP, we are aware of, for example, credit guarantee schemes that are in the market and who is offering them. And at some point, we want to take a pipeline of SMEs to the banks that are participating in those schemes, but we tend to have a blockage, in a manner that the bank or someone out in the field may not be aware of that guarantee scheme that is happening. So by having a contractual agreement between the BASP and the FI, there's some information that is kept out of the knowledge of the SME. For example, how much is guaranteed, in case there's loss. But it will also give us a leeway to have our pipeline accepted faster in a commercial bank or any other financial institution, because we're aware of the FIs that are participating in this. So that would be something that would be very important for contractual agreements.
Now, in your various capacities as FIs and BASPs, I would want to know what active role have you taken to, foster building back better in light of COVID-19, and now that we're talking about recovery. Badi, do you want to go first?
Looking at AFC and looking at our portfolio, COVID was a very interesting time for us. And coincidentally, that is the time all our data were showing positives, coincidentally. And when we participated in sessions like this and we told our stakeholders that during COVID, for some reason, everything was looking positive for AFC, it was strange. We noticed that a majority of people were moving back to the farmlands. A majority of people were taking agriculture seriously. There was a bit of concentration into the food markets and into animal production. So as the other sectors were getting a beating, we noticed that agriculture was actually looking up. And strangely, last year was our second best year in terms of recovery and in terms of disbursement. And that was a phenomenon for us. And it just went on to prove that that is a sector that is very resilient to certain kinds of shocks. And even we were shocked about that. And in our modeling, in our risk evaluation, we are now putting frameworks to prepare ourselves better, just in case such eventualities happen again. We would be able to absorb that unprecedented demand that we had last year.
Now, that was COVID. The agriculture sector relatively did well because of the COVID shock. But now we find ourselves at a situation where climate change is actually becoming a challenge. Just today we had some information indicating that the US are recording the highest temperatures in history at 40 degrees. Nairobi right now is around 19 degrees Celsius, and we have already 23 counties that are facing drought. From where you sit now, are you likely to see now more business being driven to climate financing? And what role then would BASPs be playing to ensure that, MSMEs who are in this particular value chain do not, get depleted or their business do not sink at this point?
At the very low level, I think the most important thing is to prepare your clients for that eventuality. And again, in our portfolios, what we saw is that the segments that were most hit was the livestock sector. And what we did is just design around it. We noticed that certain parts of the country had very good fodder, had very good capacity, and certain parts of the country, the reverse was true. So what we did is that we came up with an offtake program, and in this offtake program, clients who had capacity and had fodder, we would fund them and encourage them to mop up the livestock from the areas where capacity was not there. Now you notice they would get it slightly cheap, and they would have pasture that is not utilized. So there's a motive for profit there. On the flip side, when you look at the communities where they have purchased from, there is sustenance of livelihood, because instead of an animal dying, you would give an exchange of maybe 15 or 18,000 shillings. Now, thank you. Now, what that did is that this pastoral farmer would have the ability to wait for the market next season when the rains would come. And the one who has capacity has an animal that they have sourced slightly cheaper, only fatten them, and make a margin when they go back to the market. When it comes to the relationship with BASPs, preparing financial institutions for green financing is an uphill task, and that is where they come in. There are protocols, there are agreements, and there are guidelines that need to be followed. Our biggest role is to lend and make sure that our portfolios are good. Then it is the role of this BASF now to hold our hands and show us that these are the protocols and these are the guidelines for you to access this funding to go into this sector.
Madam Catherine, I think that now the candidate has been dropped right at your feet. It is that you prepare FIs, to go through this situation. What's your take in regard? Because I know your experience is within ASALS. What have you seen, especially when it comes to matters of climate financing?
So, thanks. One, I'll approach it from the fact that there is need for knowledge of definition of what is climate financing, so that a transaction that is, can be regarded as climate finance is actually taken up by a financial institution. And some of them are known, it could be fodder, it could be, some easy known transactions. But then when we start going to mechanization, cooling system, cold storage, it's also important that as we package, as a BASP, as we package the SME for a climate, fund, then the knowledge is known both ways. By the financial institution, the fact that they do have a product that is fit for climate financing and targets, climate finance SMEs, and on the other side, that the SME is aware of what, climate finance, transactions are. And then also concessions that, come in there, because, looking at drought, it means turnover is reduced, return on investment. So the financial institutions also need to change and change the way they collect, the debt that they have provided, the kind of interest rates. That has to be also concessional to fit the climate finance kind of lending. So information has to flow on both sides. And good enough, there are financials or financial institutions that look into that, climate finance, and also supporting financial institutions to understand what that is and to change their systems to adapt climate finance lending to SMEs.
Now let's bring the FI, that is equity. Since you're the one here, you will answer to that. We've talked about the issue of availability of these funds and also the capacity and, are these SMEs able or capable of paying back? And that's where BASFs come in. They have told them this is their portfolio that will get. But then let's look at it this way. When it comes to issues of liquidity, commercial banks' interest rates in the country are way off. We all know that. Now, when you're talking about sustainability, are you looking at having a conversation between FIs and BASFs that will ensure that they have unpicked these people, they have done their research, they know they're ready and willing to kind of make concessions where they're concerned to ensure that we have this engagement, it is sustainable going into the future. Would you be considering that as FIs?
Yeah, I would say yes. And in terms of that, picking the customers that would lend to, and equity, specifically, we have two arms, equity group holdings. We have two arms, the social arm and the commercial arm. And in the social arm right now, we have a pillar called energy pillar. And in this pillar, they've taken to themselves to train the internal customers on what is expected in climate smart. So we are going around, internal customers, I mean our employees, just to let them know what is expected on us and when we are lending to these MSMEs. Like for example, methane gas contributes the most to when it comes to pollution of the environment. So we have these products that when you lend, maybe you give a farmer a biodigester, then there is a reward for that. And I feel like if we would sit down with the BASPs, make them understand what it is that the financial institution is looking for and what it is that we are doing to make sure that we are aligned, then we will empower the MSMEs, and both of us are going to win. And even the MSMEs are going to be empowered on the same line. Yeah.
I'm hearing information. Information has to flow between FIs and BASFs alike, to and fro. Badia, I can see you wanted to add on to that.
When it comes to costing of products, it is common knowledge that margins in agriculture, particularly at production, are very thin. Now, if the product that you get out into the market does not speak to that reality that the margins, particularly at production, are thin, then sustainability becomes a question, because eventually these portfolios will not perform. So what we have attempted to do in our situation is get into specific projects and programs that speak to a particular sector. For instance, when you look at the sugar industry, our role was to champion import substitution, and for that to happen, it meant that you have to fund more farmers to produce more sugar so that the factories have something to crush. Now, for that to happen, it meant that we went into an agreement, and in that agreement, we are actually lending sugar loans at 5%. That is unheard of. And you see, that is to make sure that we prepare the industry so that when the safeguards are opened, the safeguards would be open when the country is fairly ready to compete. So it is program specific, and it depends on who the players are on the table. And the contracting bit of it would have to pick out the realities of what is happening on the farms. Thank you.
Now, we have had the fact that how do we maintain, or rather set up sustainable partnership between BASFs and FIs. We've had transparency, information sharing. Let's tackle the issue of liquidity. Let the target business also understand what is required of them, and have, better yet, contractual agreements between FIs and BASFs so that you secure business two-way. Now that we find ourselves in this situation, and we're here because of the Kenya Investment Mechanism, conference, or rather say forum, so to speak. From where you sit and in your individual capacities, has it met your objectives? Let's start off with you, Oscar.
I would say this must be one of the first forums that the BSPs are all coming together with the financial institution to find a way of helping the SMEs. At the moment, we are in the rollout, I would say that, because the gap that was identified before the project started is really, being reduced. But there's a lot that still need to be done so that at least there's that compatibility and working together so that at least the gap that was there to be fully reduced. Yes, we are moving in the right direction, but yet we are still not yet there. The BSPs and the financial institution still have a gap that is supposed to work together so that at least we can speak the same language when we are in the financial institution halls and when we are now in the field speaking to our customers on behalf of them so that we can make the funds available for the economic development.
Oscar, I will give you some moments to just think about the recommendations therein that you would give to ensure that we have now these sustainable partnerships going on to bridge those gaps that you have spoken of as I come back to you now. Madam Catherine, from where you sit, has this particular platform or this forum, is it meeting your objectives?
Yes, I have to say it works, and for several reasons. One, being in Kenya investment mechanisms, we get into a network that exposes us to markets outside Nairobi, in the counties outside Kenya, in the East Africa region, and also access to financial institutions that are actually outside our continent interested in investing in businesses and SMEs in this country. So that's one network that I have to say has really worked, and it has positive impact around that. Secondly, because of the incentive mechanism to BASPs and financial institutions, we've been able to go to thin markets that previously would not have considered to go. And thin markets, I'm talking about regions and the kind of value chains that we would want to look at when it comes to financing, especially in agriculture. So that has enabled us actually trickle down to areas that that would not have necessarily gone to. But beyond the program, we are sustainable enough in the fact that we're able to commercially transact with SMEs and financial institutions. We have sustainability to actually run as a BASP outside and post the end of the program.
Madam Hanagakwe, has this particular platform here provided business for you? Has it worked? Is it meeting its objective?
Yes, I would say it has worked. Our partnership with Kenya Investment Mechanism and of course the BASP. Right now, out of the incentives that we are getting from Kenya Investment Mechanisms, we're able to reach areas we couldn't reach faster because they have enabled us to do that. We've purchased, for example, vehicles that will enable us to reach places more faster than we would have done before. And through the reports that we send to them every month, we've been able now to understand deeper. We were not even very keen on these reports. But now that we have specific reports for specific value chains in very targeted counties, now I can look at this and say, oh really, we have business here. So what can we do to enhance this, even to grow it to another level? So I would say it's meeting its objective, and as a bank, we are looking into, especially us looking into growing into 30% in agriculture. I would say Kim has given us a push to grow to this, yeah.
Last but not least, Mario.
There was a mission that visited West Pokot, I think about 3 weeks ago, and went to see the works that are happening within the 10 frontier counties. And I remember the question that we were being asked, why don't you shout about these success stories? It goes to show that something is actually happening. We have more incubators coming into the program. We have more incubators exiting. The success levels of the portfolio that you're currently seeing, that is something that we are proud of. And in terms of just the relationships after this project, we're actually seeing scalability. We are seeing participation in what we call the 10 frontier counties, counties that ordinarily you would not look at when you speak business, but you would look at when you speak social. We are beginning to speak business in those 10 frontier counties. And looking at the capacities of staff who are implementing these projects, we're also seeing that there's definitely an improvement of capacity, because the requirements of these programs and projects definitely have a component of capacity building. So we are seeing a 360 in terms of development from the farmers themselves, from the position of the FI and also from the position of the country because of the participation of funding into the sector. Thank you very much.
Now, let's rope in, some questions from the floor, Riyad.
Great.
Thank you very much. My name is Tendai Mtana. I'm the County Executive Committee member for Agriculture, Mombasa County. I have a question for Catherine, but I want to set a context for AFC and for Roger before Catherine can answer it, because it speaks to the very question that you're discussing here today. So let me set the context. I want to get this right. Mr. Bonano, last year I convened a round table, and your Coast Region office was represented. And they were tasked with providing a framework, which earlier on I spoke about under the name of Blue Savannah. And it's essentially targeting the arid and semi-arid counties. And I convened it as the CEC Mombasa because we're the port city, and a lot of post-harvest management is handled at that area for counties in the coast and also on the northern frontier. We had two challenges, and this is what I'd like Catherine to speak about, because I think the business advisory framework will meet, I think, a small business challenge that your coast region is facing. The history of a lot of the arid and semi-arid areas is tied to land ownership that is caught in a succession battle between primarily, and I know Phoebe is still here, older men who are struggling with releasing the succession and operationalization of family businesses that have been successful in agriculture, livestock, and fisheries. That's one challenge, and I'd like Catherine to speak to how in the northern frontier you've handled that. But the second, I think, is with yourself in terms of why I think a business advisory service will help families that need that kind of support tied to the transitions that happen with your officers at the ground. Kwa Kiswahili tunasema mlituacha kwa mataa. And you had a change in office, and we had 3 projects that were in the pipeline, 3 families that were dealing with acreage over 150 acres that they were going to they were going to restore cashew nut farming at the coast. How are you, and this conversation I know can sound theoretical here, but how is this whole mechanism going to allow yourselves to be able to be consistent at the ground level, have business advisory services at play that understand the biases that are historical, cultural, and caught up in customary practice? Thank you.
I think, Catherine, maybe you can take the first part about, land ownership issue, given an example there with the background of what is happening down on the coast. We all know ourselves, community land and such. So as BASFs, how are you dealing with that? Then Dr. Bonano can take over the issue on, matters of financing. There's a claim there that uliacha watu kwa mata. So let's start off with Madam Catherine.
Thank you for the question. So one, I agree. Collateral, especially land, is cross-cutting in ASAL areas, but also in other sectors. Women-led businesses also suffer the same. Same title of land is owned by multiple families, or is not even owned by the woman, same as youth. And that set aside, there are ways we've been able to close deals. And one is approaching impact funds who tend to look for impact compared to the kind of collateral that the business is able to offer. That's one. Others are those funds that are Sharia compliant oriented. They also tend not to look at things like title deeds, and they look at the impact or the kind of, if it's equipment financing, whatever is being purchased is part of the collateral. So there are ways to go around it, but I have to say that part that certain level of collateral is needed also creates a bottleneck for a lot of SMEs to access finance. But we've had a lot of inflow of impact finance that tends to look at other things, gives grace periods, looks at capacity building the SME as they provide the finance as part of access to finance. But that said, as a BASP, we're also aware that a financial institution is regulated and they have a regulator, and the regulator requires that they also ring-fence shareholder interests in the money that they're lending out. So one of the required tools is, for example, a title deed or a logbook. So again, there needs to be a conversation at regulatory level to look at the communities that are not captured within that regulation, especially those in community land ownership that will need access to finance, but that bottleneck of the collateral is an actual deterrent to accessing finance. So that needs to also be captured at regulatory level. Thanks.
Tutakuhakikishia taa, and we will make sure that that which you need that is financial, we will get into a structuring table. And through that structuring, I see a sort of a guarantee with the involvement of the county government being a possibility. We worked with one of the county governments when there was a viral outbreak of maize, and therefore they had to stock down on their maize production and show up their production of fodder. But in this program, they needed quite a bit of mechanization. And when you looked at the farmers, they couldn't afford those heavy equipment on their own. When we structured a guarantee around that, and this equipment could be taken to the farmers, and AFC was assured of repayment, I'm sure right now you see from the central parts of this country, the level of fodder production has gone to another level. And it was not much. It was just 35 million shillings, about 8 pieces of big equipment that would go into the farms of about 11 cooperatives, about 2,000 members. Now, those are things that we are willing and ready to structure. After this meeting, we will share our contacts. In our midst, there is an expert for guarantee design. He's called Jackson Echoka. Maybe he may just rise so that you see him. And this is a resource that the Agricultural Finance Corporation has seconded to the National Treasury to help this conversation around developing guarantee schemes and reaching out to those very segments that are considered extremely risky. So, both tutakuashia mata. Thank you.
Regina, there are just a few digital questions. I don't know if you can just generalize them entirely.
Yes.
Them so it can help close the session. There's a question that comes in, and this is entirely to the financial institutions. And this person says, I understand that Kim has been paying incentive fees to BASPs, which has been highly successful. A question to the financial institutions in the panel. Are you ready to pay success fees to a BASP for bringing you good business?
Are you ready as FIs?
Okay,
maybe?
all right.
The question was, as FIs, are you ready to pay fee for successful business, so to speak, to BASPs? We got it right.
All right. As that comes in, maybe let me just read all of them to just save on a bit of time. The next general questions are, to the BASPs, what has worked well for you in engagement with FIs over the last 2 years, and what's not working? To the financial panelists, the question is the same. What has worked for you over the last 2 years? What is not working? What needs to be fixed? And the last question comes in that people want to get a list of the BASPs and FIs working with Kim so they can also be able to know who to interact with in the process. Yeah. So you can take it away.
Far end.
So whether we pay BASPs for the services they offer, I think BASPs are in the room and they can do the confirmation on our behalf. Whether we participate in KIMS as a financial institution, yes we do. just before the BASPs confirm, yes, we actually pay for their services. Thank you. And we're willing to contract for as long as the missions and the program objectives are well designed and we know what impact we are going to get at the end of the program. Yes, we do.
What has not been working from where you stand, or what needs recommendations going forward as you come to a close?
What has not been working sometimes is the preparation for the incubatees. I think that is where the conversation needs to go slightly deeply, because if these incubatees who then come for funding are not properly prepared, then there's a possibility that you would reject an entire cohort or an entire list. So I think what then needs to happen is just a deeper conversation on how then we prepare these pipelines for absorption.
From what hasn't worked, but also there's a question is, are you willing to pay the fee once BASPs bring in the business?
What has not worked, I would say is still the same thing he said, that during the preparations, maybe the BASP does not quite understand what the financial institution is looking for. And in that line, we need a lot of patience when we are coaching these MSMEs, so that as they come to the bank, whether the bank is not ready to pick them at that particular time, then the BASP is still willing to go with them the journey until they are ready to be taken up. I would say that we are ready to pick conversation with the BASPs, look at the terms and conditions of our contracts, and we can talk about the fee in the terms and conditions of our understanding of our agreement.
Madam Gitonga?
So I have to say, one, I'll confirm with Bonano, there are financial institutions that pay if they have in their processes that they pay for success of closure, and there are those that don't because they don't have that in their processes. So it's a conversation that would need to be have had with each individual institution. Secondly, what the question was mentioning, that as BASPs we receive incentive fees, it's good to mention that that's a de-risking mechanism, but it's not 100% fee in itself. So even as BASPs and as private sector institutions, we are expected to charge a fee for the work that we do, with SMEs as well as with financial institutions. And what I have to say hasn't worked is sometimes, especially SMEs that are, have finance that is fighting for resources, paying for BASP services doesn't become priority compared to paying salaries and paying rent, for example. So one thing that needs to improve, I have to say, is the services of a BASP are needed when you set up the SME, but usually our services come in when it's really mandatory and you need money to pay farmers in a week's time. So it becomes a challenge to close a deal within a week. And what happens is we have to advise the SME that it is a journey that takes a while to close a transaction. But I have to say the mechanism has worked, Kenya investment mechanisms. The de-risking process has allowed us, like I said before, to go to thin markets. And as a private sector organization, we are also sustainably able to run our operations without necessarily depending on the incentive fee.
Yes, last but not least, maybe you can answer to that as we bring this to a close, Mr. Onyana.
Okay, on what has not worked, especially for the BSPs with the SMEs and the financial institutions, is somehow the urgency. You find that sometimes SMEs we can call it like a crash program. They come to you when they know they're at the dead end, and you see us is to facilitate because we don't have the finance. So when when a customer comes with the urgency that he needs the money, and you have to do all the documentation and the preparation for the bank to understand that this is an emergency, it becomes not easy for you to secure funding for such a customer. And you see, when he or she is given a referral that if you go to this BSP, you will be assisted, and because of the time, he or she fails to get that assistance, the information going back is now negative. You tell us that they have money and they're telling us they don't have money. See, it's that information. That is the challenge that sometimes we get. But I know with the time and the acceptance that we're going to have in the market, they will be able to understand that it is a journey. It is not a one-off that you walk in and you go out with money. So that's the challenge that we have been having with the SMEs.
Well, thank you very much. We're discussing forging sustainable partnerships between business advisory service partners and financial institutions. And my take home is that there's need for information sharing, transparency, and walking the journey post the finance, as well as addressing the issues of liquidity when it comes to FIs and having specified investments, as well as contractual agreements between BASPs and FIs, and creating awareness and making the SMEs understand the language as well as what is needed for them. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We've been speaking to Oscar Onyono, founder of Swaso Consultancy. Thank you very much for your time. And also Madam Catherine Gitonga, the CEO of Smart Regional Consultants, Asante Sana. And we had Hannah Queer, who is a relationship manager, partnership and ecosystem banking at Equity. And last but not least, Bonano Badia, Chief Credit Officer at the Agricultural Finance Corporation. Asanteni Sana for your insight. I've been your host, Regina Manyara. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you very much, Regina, and the entire panel on that exciting segment and feature around fostering sustainable partnerships between the BASPs and the FIs. I know, yes, I know I'm seeing a cut of time. Bearing in mind the session coming in next is meant to be our last one for the day. I see there's one participant here on the side, really looking at me because maybe nimekata kumpatia nafasi ya kuongea, ma'am. I know it's the last segment for the day. You had a cue.
I like this whole issue of BASPs, and especially for those of us who deal with small scale and micro businesses, women's businesses. Some of them are afraid to take loans. Once they go into a bank and they are turned away, they don't want to go back. So the fact that there is somebody else they can go to before they go to the bank is a very attractive thing for women. And I wonder, what does it cost for a BSP? I mean, for a micro business to work with a BSP? I would just like to know that, have an idea.
Sam, how many seconds or 1 minute are you giving for this? All right, so one. Catherine, probably you could just... okay, so Catherine, anyone who will want to answer that bit? Yeah, sure, Oscar. Just come, yeah.
I would say this is an agreement that we have with the SMEs, because we don't have a standard charge, but it depends on the nature of the work that we are going to do to work with the SME to the level that we will be able to access the finance. So there's no standard charges that we can say we have to do it this way, but it is a business that you discuss with your customer and you agree on the charges and you agree on how you are going to be meeting, because it's just a discussion that you have on how you are going to work with the customer and how long it's going to take you, depending also on the charges and the area that you are working with the customers.
I hope that's adequate, right? It's not adequate. Are you going to get the list of BSPs? As far as I'm concerned, the BSPs in the house, one is Oscar. From Swaso, there is Catherine from SRC, and I believe from that Kim will be more than willing to bring it up. All right. So thank you for that. Probably also you could have a chat with Oscar at the side, and maybe just get also deeper insights on that because he's still around. Okay. So, ladies and gents, it's with so much gratitude that we're getting into the last segment session for the day. The session that has just preceded this has been centered on fostering sustainable partnerships between the BASPs and the FIs. And at this particular juncture, I don't know if it could be wise to talk fish right now, or is it wise for us to talk fish before we went to lunch? But let's see what this fish dish is all about, and the session coming in next is centered on investing in Kenyan aquaculture segment. And allow me to introduce Mr. Noah Kipkemboi, who works as a business reporter and anchor at KTN. Noah, probably this is a chance for you to probably just go on stage. Noah is going to take lead and cue in for us, the panelists coming in this particular segment. And I hope as he takes the session away, you also get to unpack some fish on your plate. So Noah, are you ready? One, two, on your mic. The floor is all yours for you to take it up. All right. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Imagine sitting down for a 1-hour session. Just be on your feet for a minute. Please, stand up, stretch a little bit, yeah? I know you've eaten, some of you went for the ugali, that is like going for the jugular. And for the last session, you've been dozing between dreamland and matters BASPs. We can't allow that when we have fish on the table. All right? So now you feel a little bit better? Okay, are you ready for the fish dish? All right, lovely. Ask your neighbor this question. I love fish because dash. Fill the dash. I can hear you. I love fish because I have no option. I see that. I love fish because ugali is more expensive. I see that. All right, you can have your seats. Welcome to the fish dish. And without wasting much time, I know I'm giving camera people a hard time since I'm moving a lot. But at this particular moment, I'd like to invite our panelists. This will be the most fun. I know they put us last because they thought, they're closing out. This will be the most fun, trust you me. So I'll simply have a seat here. I feel you guys are a little bit far. If I had an option, I'll act like a pastor and ask people to move at the seat in front. But I don't have that liberty right now. So I'll proceed straight away to invite Edna Odalo, is the Managing Director, Afriscope Limited. Please clap for her. She comes on stage. Encourage her. Come on, guys. Yes. Edna, amazing. That is how models work, and you can learn a thing or two apart from financing, how to walk on stage. Edna, karibu sana. Up next we have Phoebe O'Rourke, who is the Chief Executive Officer, Lamero Console. Pigeni makofi tafadhali. Amazing lady. Till she reaches the stage, encourage her as she comes. Yes, some of you are talking about dressing African. That is how we dress African. Well, next time, USAID, when you invite me, Kims, I will be in Akitenge. Welcome, Phoebe O'Rourke from Lamero Consult. We have Samuel Ondiek from DAS Group. Please clap for him as he comes, the gentleman right there, DAS Group. He'll tell us what he's doing with fish farmers. And lastly, we have Dev Okech from Aquarech. Make sure your company name and your surname always rhyme. Dev Okech from Aquarech. Welcome on stage, sir. Please appreciate him as he comes. Amazing people. Wow. Don't forgive it up for the DJ. He's doing a good job. I know. All right. Wow. Talk about gender balance. I'm happy because at the fish sector and aqua sector, we are very gender balanced. All right. So starting us off, every story has a history. And when you talk about aquaculture in Kenya, there is a deep history where we've come from and where we are right now. And who better to give us a breakdown of this particular history other than Phoebe War, who is the CEO of Lamero Consult. Phoebe, I mean, we've seen, I look at the graph of aquaculture and aqua sector, performance. They sort of are deep, then we come up, they're about 2013, then we start going down again. Give us a brief history. Where are we coming from? Yes, and I know when my village mate is speaking, please switch on the microphone. Thank you very much. Do we have the microphone on?
Yes, thank you, Kip. My name is Phoebe Owuor. Once again, I'm still Phoebe. And I've been privileged to have a lot of input in the aquaculture sector for over 15 years in Kenya. That is one of the most delicate sectors that feels ignored, yet very important. Unfortunately, we produce about 100 today metric tons of fish, both wild and farmed. I think it has gone up because of the inroads that we've gotten in Lake Turkana. There's quite a bit of beehive in Lake Turkana since the roads were opened. And so you have quite a bit of fish in pro boxes coming down to Kitale into the hinterland of Kenya. We consume about 400 metric tons per annum, and that tells us we have a deficit of 300 metric tons. That's quite huge. How do we close this gap? This gap is closed with imports. Basically, a lot of imports, mainly from China. 80 or 90% of that import is mainly tilapia. The rest is sea fish. I'll not complete the story of the aquaculture without acknowledging and appreciating our third president, the late Mwai Kibaki. Through the economic stimulus project, you cannot complete Kenya's aquaculture story without acknowledging and appreciating the efforts he put into changing the Kenyan aquaculture space, totally. There were 3 key areas of impact. One was the consumption of fish. 2 was the farming of fish. And 3 was how the business of fish is done. The economic stimulus project brought about digging of ponds in several counties. I think there were about 15, 16, 17, 18 counties that were given ponds. They identified potential fish farm workers who had land to have the ponds done. They gave feeds, they gave technical support, they even gave the market and left the entrepreneurs to continue. I'm sorry, but I'll tell you this. There's a lot of uptake, particularly from my area in the mountains. There's a lot of uptake of that initiative. When we went, I was lucky to be involved in the what you call tracer study. There's a lot of uptake that most of the people who had started that farming actually bought land or leased land. Some even grew the fish in tanks on top of roofs. That is at the mountain place. And it totally changed their eating habits. Most of them now eat more fish than the Jaluos from the lake region. Fish is consumed heavily in the mountain area and even the Rift Valley. It is fortunate that a lot of projects coming into the country has a component of nutrition, which is re-emphasizing the importance of fish. Unfortunately, we do not have enough fish, hence the farming of fish, the aquaculture.
All right.
Last year, I was fortunate, we got some work to do a scoping study and a situational and context analysis for the EU in the 6 coastal counties to look at what the aquaculture setup is, what are some of the potential aquaculture that could be uptaken, and the mariculture. The study was complete. They are now implementing in the 6 counties. So fish has a history, fish has space, fish has a potential for growth. Thank you.
Wow, amazing. That's how you attack a conversation. And you know, you say fish has history, and some history is fishy. And some of you are asking, what is my history with fish? Maybe technical. Do you have that picture? Just to alleviate any kind of doubt. That is me, okay? And I was eating fish today. Ask yourself, what are you doing for the aquaculture sector, all right? That is just a by the way. So we experienced the economic stimulus program, looking at the numbers. 2012, for example, 49,000 farmers. Incredible. 70,000 ponds, 2,105 hectares under fish. Incredible. This is 2012. Then come production around 2014 thereabout, around 24,000 metric tons. Okay? Now 2019, 18,000 metric tons. The acreage, 1,800, a reduction from 2,000. The ponds, now 60,000. Something happened when the economic stimulus package stopped. That's why I bring in DS, because you've been on the ground. This transition that we saw, why the sudden drop?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Thank you very much, sir. So in regards to, we saw a hike in fish production and the activity within the aquaculture sector during the economic stimulus package arena and that timeline. Then later on after that, when it stopped, we've been seeing a reduction in production. Again, from 2013, 2014, the numbers have been coming down. The expectation was will continue rising since there is a deficit in the country. What happened there?
Yeah, my name is Samuel Ondiek, DS Group Kenya Limited. DS Group means Development of Aquaculture Support. We've been in fish business since 2012. And currently we are actually stationed in Kakamega. We have an agreement with Kakamega County. We've actually leased one of the factories that was built during the economic stimulus program. And we are currently working also with the LREB counties, which actually encompasses around about 14 counties. Now, back to your question. I think it's due to over-reliance on subsidies that are given by county governments or the government, and that actually brings in the fact that sustainability has to be injected into the system to enable continuity of the business even after exit of either development partners or the government from giving subsidies to farmers. Yeah, so that's why we come in and we want this process or the ecosystem to work without any hindrance that might come about as a result of over-reliance on subsidies.
And that is important to note, because creating sustainable business in the aquaculture, sector is very important. And funding is one of the issues, because funding actually is a critical pillar when it comes to making business move. Yeah, and I'm glad we have actually Edna with us. Edna, we've discussed extensively on the issue of connecting SMEs in the aquaculture sector with funding. Yeah. Now, when we see such a situation, economic stimulus ends. Now the businesses are not sustainable. There was sort of over-reliance, and now you come in as, you know, as a BASP, for example. How do you turn around? How do you create a sustainable aquaculture business, especially falling under the SME category?
Okay, thank you very much. First, I would like to answer your question of why I love fish. I love fish because fish is tasty. Fish is one of the most nutritious sources of protein and probably one of the first types of meats I ate from the time I was a kid. So that's very important to note. So anyway, on the over-reliance, when transitioning, as our role as BASPs is actually to ensure the businesses are properly structured. We set up policies that enable the businesses to just run by themselves, to be able to be investor ready. We get them more attractive for investors to put in their money to finance these businesses. But we also analyze the businesses for gaps. We identify any gaps. We seal any loopholes so that the businesses can be self-sustaining. Yes, we have a history of over-reliance of grants, and that really did not work very well in this aquaculture sector after the economic stimulus program ended. But that does not mean that the businesses are not sustainable. If you work with a BASP, we hold your hand, we work with you, we walk with you, we ensure that everything is running and operating efficiently and effectively. So another thing that we're doing as BASPs is, in a way, advocacy. We're trying to bring to the table all these say impact investors who look at the impact of your business more than they focus on the collateral aspect of it. So that has been a challenge in getting financing. But it's something that we're working towards. We're looking at engineering various tools to more like financial engineering so that we can be able to address this issue of financing. We advocate for blended financing, whereby you can have a little bit of a grant, but more of it, more commercialized financing, because it makes you as a business person more accountable. And when you're more accountable, when you have to repay somebody back, then you will work even harder, you know, to make sure your business succeeds. So that is just a few things here and there that we can talk about. And also one of the reasons why I believe the economic stimulus plan worked for a short time and then later on did not work was because we didn't have enough information. There is so much data that we have now collected over the years since 2009 to now. The businesses now know say how long it takes to harvest the feed, what food you need to feed, we talk about the feed conversion ratio, what quality feeds you need to give your broodstock, what type of broodstock you need to put in. For example, we're talking about the in tilapia YY technology. All these things are turning around the sector and making the sector more investable. Thank you.
Wow. So the issue of information gap is quite critical to note. And I mean, one of the ways that we can transform aquaculture is adoption of technology, which is very important, and we'll go knees deep into that. But for starters, I'm still very passionate about that economic, program by President late President Mwai Kibaki. In fact, right now we are in a transition mode as a country, and I'm listening to some of these debates. Nothing is being laid clearly in terms of doing what they will do for specific, sectors. You ask somebody, what is your plan for aquaculture? They ask you again, what is aquaculture? That's where we are right now, though the political discourse at least has improved. So, Devocage, I know you run Aquarech, and there's some people who've been calling it Aquarec, yeah? Thinking it's some English name. Rech, I'm told it's fish, yeah? And you guys are quite big on matters technology. Maybe that's why there is that confusion a little bit. In terms of making an SME sustainable, first of all, talk to us about aqua technology and the affordability of it for starters, even before somebody starts to adopt technology in the aquaculture sector.
Thank you very much. My name is Devocage, CEO of Aquarech Limited. We are basically a platform that is enabling small and medium-sized fish farmers to connect to top quality feed manufacturers. We provide market access to the small and medium-sized fish farmers, and we also do training and capacity building. All this is done through a mobile app technology called Aquarech Farmer App. Aquarech Farmer App is available on Android. It's free for download. We don't charge it to any farmer. Our revenue model is on the transaction of feeds and fish that is done on the platform. We are currently in 6 counties: Kirinyaga, Kisumu, Siaya, Kakamega, Busia, and Homa Bay, and we are scaling the technology. So technology, I was a fish farmer for 4 years in Lake Victoria. I was doing cage fish farming, and built one of the most vibrant cage fish farms. But in the process of farming, I realized a couple of challenges face farmers in the sector. One is when you farm fish, as much as the deficit is huge out there, there is no platform or way for you to connect to the market. When you are sourcing for the quality feeds that you need to grow your fish within the 8 to 10 months period, like commercial farms are doing, you have no access to this feed because it is largely imported feed. When you are looking at the good aquaculture practices that you need to adapt in order to improve your management practices, these are lacking for small and medium-sized fish farmers, and we missed them. So how could we get them? When you're looking at a flexible payment solution for your feed, because it's a high-cost investment, not very many financial institutions are willing to give you feed, to give you cash on credit. And so the history behind Aquarech was actually formed as a platform, a technological platform that will then enable communication between farmers and feed manufacturers, between farmers and traders, and between input suppliers and farmers. That is how we developed Aquarech. To date, a farmer in the rural part of Kagio in Kirinyaga is able to access top quality feed from Brazil by the click of a button. And through a last mile distribution system, that farmer is able to reduce the production period from 16 months to 10 months. Significant impact in terms of productivity of the farmer. The same stories to the farmers that we are working with in the other counties. We have gone further and even developed a flexible payment solution where farmers on our platform are able to access feed on a credit basis of up to 90 days. And we have a default rate of 0 because our payment structure is based on taking the fish that the farmer has produced. And through that, we are able to catalyze the sector to move farmers from use of sinking mash feed, which prolongs their production period up to 16 months, making the fish expensive and producing some of the skinniest fish you've ever imagined, to reducing their production by cutting off 6 months of production period, getting them to earn better, and producing quality fish that even when you're eating in the house, you are happy to eat fish that has been farmed. That's the kind of transformation technology has brought into the sector. Yeah, thank you.
And it's incredible for you to know that maybe this will come later on, because one of the arguments in the agricultural sector has been, what is the average age of a farmer? And always we throw up another figure, an ancestral figure, so to put it, yeah? A farmer, an average farmer in Kenya is 65 years. They cannot, in fact, they don't like smartphones, and you're making applications for them. For aqua sector and the places that you've operated, how is the adoption, the uptake of this technology?
Surprisingly, the uptake of smartphone technology, the penetration of smartphone technology is quite high in the farmers. Largely because the way the world has moved. The world has moved where you don't own smartphone just because of prestige. You need to use it to collect money for funerals when your cousin or relative has died. Otherwise, people don't attend Harambes anymore. So smartphone penetration is quite high, almost at 70%. But what we have done is we have built both USSD platform, *483-1409#, allows you to buy the feed and we deliver it at your doorstep, or the fish and we deliver it to your doorstep. Then those who are on the smartphone side are able to download the application. Of course, with a smartphone-based application, you can access more services than USSD. But I would say close to 75% of the farmers we deal with are on smartphone. And these are farmers who are, their turnover in terms of what they harvest is about, 400 kilograms per year, which is about 120,000 shillings turnover in terms of revenue that we'll get from fish production. So there's high smartphone penetration, I would say, in the farmer sector.
All right. And remember, you can also be part of these conversations because sometimes when you're having panels, people who are seated here, they normally zone out. They're just waiting for the moderator to say, thank you very much. My name has been Noah Kipkemboi. Then you come back. So listen in carefully. If you have any questions, we shall be coming back to you. You can just raise your hand so that we note where you are, and later on we'll come to you so that you direct to a specific individual the question. But I want to come back to Phoebe. You noted we have a huge gap, a deficit when it comes to fish. And it's the same discussion when you go to the manufacturing sector. Deficit and local production has been low, so we have to import. In fact, as a country, we are a net importer of everything, and that is a bad place to be. You saw during COVID. So based on your experience, I've seen you've worked in Mozambique, you've worked across the country. What can we do different? Can we fulfill this gap and deficit internally? How so?
Thank you, Kip. I think I also want to applaud the government for the efforts and the initiatives they've put in place. And during the economic stimulus program, the government constructed, I think, 5 or 6 cold storage across the country. Nyeri, Kakamega, Nyandiwa, Homa Bay, Rongo. Yeah, huge facilities that was to support the aquaculture production in the country. The structures have been neglected, albeit for I think 4, which have now been hired by private sector, who are using them to mop up the fish and store the fish and also sell the fish. And I think that is Kakamega for some. Rio Fish, who was here yesterday, has uptaken the Homa Bay one. There's Nyeri, which is also going on. So the infrastructure is there. Secondly, there's quite a bit of infrastructure development in terms of roads, particularly to support the cage culture, the cage fish farming in Lake Victoria. A lot of the beaches did not have good roads into the beaches. The government has been able to pave those roads. The other infrastructure facility which has also been supported by the counties, they took the project. I don't think this is a good one. With due respect to Mr. Mtandai, the counties are taking the responsibility of doing the business with the business people. They're supplying feed, fingerlings, and other materials that the fish farmers need. Now, that is not a good stage to be, because the business people should do business and make money. The government should only create and allow conducive environment, the infrastructural development, but not do the business. I've had quite a bit of cross with a few of them when we tell them that you should let the business people do the business. You should do the business of creating the environment. But they are still purchasing and supporting and allowing the grant syndrome to step in back again. It's also not very easy for us to appreciate or even take care of things we get free. So you should be able to pay for something, then you respect it and scale it up properly. What we need to do, I think there should be a change, because there are a lot of, about 6 major projects now running on aquaculture. We should have some good change, some good conversation with the developing partners to be able to streamline with the government on how aquaculture should be approached. On the feeding regime, number one, the cost of feeding is very high, extremely high, that the farmers cannot make money. Number two, the transfer of knowledge and skills is a big issue. As I said yesterday, the men go to the workshop, they get the information and the knowledge. The chicks in the village run the ponds with nothing as basic management skills on these ponds. And the pond is as good as how it's managed. So those are areas that need a lot of input, need a lot of consideration. Not lastly, but I think one other issue that will also need a lot of emphasis from the fishermen, allow me to call you fisher folk, or fishermen and women. The fishy people, to be able to create consortiums of working together. Currently, Egypt is the biggest exporter of fish in Africa. Where does it get the water? Does it have the comparative advantages we have? We have about 8 water bodies in Kenya, from Lodwar to Baringo to Naivasha to Lake Victoria to Lake Jipe to Lake Kenyatta. We have water bodies, including the ocean. Yet, they produce the most fish in Africa. Where is the rain beating us? It's simply management systems, basic management systems, basic transfer of clear and good knowledge and skills to the people who want to invest. And for the counties and the government, please let us do the business. We pass when we don't do the business, but do not meddle in the business of the business people.
Very important. Where did the rain start beating us? Matters management. DS group here on the ground. And we've discussed the systems that are there so far operational in our local aquaculture market, especially the fish value chain. I see sort of majority, there is sort of a centralized system where one person is farming fish, that person is also selling fish. So they are end to end. And I don't know how sustainable that is. Are there more sustainable and better systems that can make our aquaculture sector more vibrant?
Thank you, Kip. I would wish to say that our approach in terms of the fish farming and its value chain is actually within
the scope of trying to transition farmers from their current status, which is informal to formal. We want to make sure that nobody is left behind. We would want to build an ecosystem whereby the feed production has its sector in terms of its development. The fingerling production has its sector in terms of development. The cold chain infrastructure also has to have its own development, whereby we have professionals who are handling that. The processing, which we are in as anchor within that value chain, also has the off-taker, which are ourselves, and then now the market. We create opportunities as a value chain. So that makes it sustainable in terms of value chain actors. That is how we can reach the market and everybody has a piece of the pie within the table.
And Edna, looking at what Samuel has just talked about, the more centralized system, which is end-to-end and individual, vis-a-vis a more diversified system where, you know, people are empowered in different spaces, the producers of fingerlings, you know, all this, at least everyone is having a piece of the pie other than you just in the whole pie. In terms of funding, this one seems so easy to fund because I know you farm fish. I'll help you improve capacity there. I know you have a market, pretty straightforward. And this other one, unless you have an aggregator that is coming and bringing all these different players together, it becomes a little bit different. So from a funder's perspective of somebody who's geared towards making finances flow into these SMEs, which systems work best and can attract more funding?
Okay, from our experience as business advisory service providers, we've seen finances getting attracted to sectors that are quite well structured. For example, if we're to look at what we need to do and what we are working on in the aquaculture sector is what we're calling inclusive contract farming, where we deal, we aggregate the smallholder producers, right? And they do have contracts. This already makes them bankable. If, say, I have farmer A in Kakamega, farmer C in Siaya, another one in Busia, and they have a contract to supply DAS group, all right? That farmer already is bankable. They can use this contract at the bank. They would walk to Equity Bank, ensure that they have a market for their produce. Already, that increases their bankability and gives them a better chance of getting financing. So we talk about inclusive and sustainable contract farming. This also makes the smallholder producer more efficient, more effective. You know, the business now becomes more bankable, more sustainable at the level of the producer. Again, when the producer knows that they have a place to sell their produce, and that's now, we talk about the logistics, the cold chain distribution. If we have, and I know Sam is actively working on that, whereby we have a cold chain distribution system. So I know my fish will be ready by end of this month. I've already alerted the distribution channel. They know, they come and collect. Immediately the fish comes out of the water. We know how perishable fish is. They're put in cold chain facilities immediately. We get funding for these reefers, refrigerated trucks. Like, that is an opportunity for someone in this entire value chain. That's an opportunity right there for someone to invest in cold chain facility transportation. And immediately this is taken to the factory, to the processing plant. Once the fish gets to the processing plant, there's value addition to increase the shelf life of the fish. We're talking about the smoker. the smoking machine that we have at the facilities in Kakamega, DAS Group facilities, this increases the shelf life of the fish by 7 months. Already that's making it possible for us to market the product. Or if we put this through the plate freezer, it increases the shelf life of the fish by 2 years. 2 years. How, you've already empowered the farmer, because the farmer does not have to sell the fish at the farm. The farm gate prices sometimes can be very, very bad. You can end up selling a kilo of fish for 30 shillings just because you have to get rid of this product before it rots. We know, again, that completely mitigates the risk of perishability of the product. So, going back to how do we make this sector investable is by completely mitigating all these risks that are associated with aquaculture, and it is what we are in the process of doing. We have quite a huge uptaker in Western Kenya that is the DAS Group, and once we have structured every single aspect of the value chain, then there's nothing, the sector will be unstoppable.
Definitely unstoppable. And I know we're being shown there we have 24 minutes here, but this interview is unstoppable, so we can go past. No, apologies for the facilitators, all right? I mean, coming to Dev, so we've spoken about systems, and you know, technology is a disruptor. It's not a respecter of anyone. It comes in, and if you're not ready for it, my brother, you will be swept by that flood. What flood should we be expecting right now in the aquaculture sector with tech players like you coming on board strongly and offering tech like Aquarage platforms?
I don't know whether to call it a tsunami wave or something, but let me, so like for example in Aquarage we use IoT. IoT is Internet of Things. To train farmers on precision fish feeding. And that simply means teaching the farmer to calculate the exact amount of feed the fish needs to eat at which point in time. And in that way you optimize the feed conversion ratio. So you save the cost, save the environment, and the farmer gets more return by those savings. If you look at the IoT and the big data that is coming up, they are completely going to make aquaculture more productive. They are going to make it profitable. They are going to make it sustainable. And they are going to make it more inclusive. That's the kind of disruption that technology is bringing to the aquaculture sector. FAO, if I give you an example, estimates that by 2030, aquaculture in Africa will have grown by 350%. 2050, 558%. What that means is aquaculture by 2050 will have replaced wild fisheries, meaning the fish that you hunt, because population of Africa is growing, rivers are not growing, right? The lakes are still the same. The quantity of fish that was there since our grandfathers were there is getting depleted. The blue economy, the new word in town, blue economy, was actually coined out of the idea that how can we sustainably explore the resources around large water bodies. And this is exactly where aquaculture fits in. Technology is going to be, and it is already, a key driver towards how aquaculture can harness the potential of these large water bodies to feed the population of Africa that is growing. Right now, in the counties that we operate in, a farmer doesn't have to look for feed from anywhere. He has it on the phone. And with that, one of the biggest challenges that the aquaculture sector has faced is the high fragmentation of the sector. You have up to 10 middlemen that exist between the time the fish is produced to the time the fish lands in this beautiful hotel when you get to pay for it very expensively. Technology is coming in to disrupt that by opening up direct communication between the farmer and the market player. And in each case, the farmer has the ability to see the market dynamics, such as prices, and be able to make informed decisions. If you add that with the infrastructure around the technology, such as cold chain facilities and IoTs and AIs and all this, you are able to transform the sector completely from the current problems that it faces to a very productive sector. And those are the kind of disruptions that we want to see happen in the aquaculture sector. That's why we are keen to be a disruptive champion in the aquaculture.
I mean, Dev, just to rebut to that, not necessarily even rebuttal, but just to think about it, because he wants to remove all intermediaries, yeah? He wants, I have a feeling he wants to cut DS out of this equation, totally. Like, let's just put DS aside. Farmer, talk to the market. Is it something that you are in full support?
Let me help there a little bit. The idea is, can DAS, who is an aggregator, get a platform to interact directly with the farmer and avoid the middleman that exists between the farmer and DAS? That's the kind of technology-enabling platform that we are providing. And with that, there is fairness in transaction. There should be fairness. I mean, the farmer should make some money, otherwise we won't have fish to eat. That's my comment. Thanks.
Sam?
Thank you. DAS has actually put in place structures that give assurance to the market in terms of our quality standards, which the farmer cannot provide to the market. Like, for example, now, as we see today, our organization has the capacity and also the certification to export, which the farmer doesn't have. So we actually give them access to the market that they cannot reach. There are markets that maybe the farmer can reach, that is low level, but when you talk about high level, then you have to deal with a processor who has certifications that are recommended for export. So that is where we come in, and that is how we open up even for farmers the export market for their produce, which we definitely need in terms of revenue from the export market also.
Definitely. Phoebe, is that a huge scourge in the sector right now as we speak, the middlemen that Aquaculture is trying to cut out, but at the same time having legit people to give confidence and set standards not only for Kenya but internationally too for products?
Thank you, Kip. In all value chains, middlemen exist. They're called agents, they're called middlemen, they're called brokers. They exist. These are our own sons, our own husbands, our brothers and sisters. We must allow them to exist. The only thing we need to do is clearly restructure the value chain or the sub-value chain that you're dealing in so that it can accommodate the middlemen and the brokers so that everybody is rewarded equitably. Proper value chains function. Middlemen are critical in terms of market acquisition and getting market access issues. They are. And we cannot make a decision that we want to relegate the middlemen outside the mainstream. In all sectors, the subsectors, middlemen exist, and I think they play a critical role that should be appreciated and valued. They have to eat. The children have to go to school.
Dev, we're just looking at you, yeah? We are wondering now, these people have families. They have to eat. Their children have to go to school.
Farmers' children have to go to school too. Everybody has to go to school if you have a child. What we are saying is a highly fragmented sector disadvantages the farmer. And so what we are doing in the aquaculture sector is to create an open trading platform. The beauty of an open trading platform is that it doesn't segregate. It allows middlemen and farmers to transact and engage in an open platform. And the platform is so open that a middleman is able to see the price that the farmers are bidding for, and willing buyer, willing seller basis. So we are not locking out anyone. What we are actually doing is to make the sector open and transparent, and that has given middlemen, in fact, more access to information about available sources of fish. Because one of the reasons why a farmer is pushed down with low prices is because of lack of alternative sources of market, and middlemen also relying on one particular source of fish. However, if you provide a platform that enables middlemen, whichever where they are, farmers, whichever place they are, to connect and trade openly and freely, you empower the farmer to make money. The middlemen have very many alternative sources, and so business booms. That's actually what we want to see, as opposed to a case where farmer does not even know where the market is. He gets invited by one middleman to sell his fish. Then he realizes he has sold his fish at 230 shillings, whereas the farmer next door has sold his fish at 330 shillings. Even that 330 shillings has been paid by the middleman. What about if we had a platform that will allow everybody to connect to each other and everybody to trade? Middlemen will make more money because then they have abundance of supply. Farmers will make more money because they get better prices as a result of continuous bidding.
Okay, definitely. Edna, briefly, a highly fragmented system vis-a-vis, it is sort of formalizing the highly informal. And that is sort of a huge prerequisite for, to get support, to get funding, to get credit to these farmers. How easy has that been? What has been the process from your understanding and experience?
Well, it's not been that easy, but it's not impossible. It is not impossible at all. We're talking about the entire aquaculture system. First of all, there is market for the product. The most important thing is there is market. Did you ever envision seeing a fish kiosk, fish butchery in Kitengela? Kitengela has predominantly been, Kajiado County, predominantly been beef eating region. So see, there is market, there is opportunity in the sector. We have tightened the market. We're still working on it. You should be able to walk into supermarkets and see branded products from various fish farms. That is actually possible. So tighten the market, tighten the distribution and logistics chain, tighten the supply in terms of at the producer level. And there is room for middlemen to fit in any part of the value chain. They can recalibrate. There's opportunity. There's demand for the product. There's supply for the product. Up in between, there are jobs being created. You don't have to just be a middleman to go collect fish at the farm and take it to market. There are other things you can do within the value chain. So yes, highly fragmented, but working towards structuring the entire value chain. Have we made headway? Yes, we have. Is it attractive enough for the investors? Not quite yet, but if they don't jump on the bandwagon, they'll come when the share prices are too high. This is the time.
Definitely. It has that feeling of Bitcoin.
And most importantly, not to leave the work we do as advisors out of it. It's very important because we're targeting each and every actor in the value chain. we're working with each and everyone to solidify this entire system so that we can make it sustainable, we can make it scalable. Every single person in the value chain, we're working with them.
Incredible. I think it's the perfect time to open up. I see we have 13 minutes. I want to open up the Q&A segment. Narut,
yeah, that's okay.
You know, I've
There's a question
struggled
right here.
the name, yeah? Here we go. The floor is yours.
Sure, she's right here.
Thanks, Rugut. My name is Damaris Ndira, and I'm a value chain and capacity building service provider for poultry value chain, not for fish. However, I see a lot of similarities between the two, and therefore I have noted a few issues that I would like to just bring to the discussion. And thank you, because I'm seeing the aspect of having end-to-end service provision and matters of middlemen, coming into play. And my question is that in the value chain of poultry, we've had to create cooperatives, something that has not been very imminent in that kind of a value chain, especially in the counties where we operate, which is Homa Bay County. And there has been a lot of issues trying to solidify these POs, the producer organizations, where the farmer needs to run to for aggregation or even as collection centers so that they can gain accessibility to the markets. The POs themselves or the cooperatives themselves need a lot of help for them to come to bar, for them to be able to offer that service to the farmer. And therefore, there's a lot of challenges trying to federate and link these farmers to these cooperatives. So my question is, does Aquarech have a feature that allows, if not the middlemen, and thank you because you have explained it quite well, that it allows us to have a platform that has an open interaction amongst everyone within the value chain. What about the producer organizations that I would call cooperatives in this case? And if you have taken care of that, if you have accommodated them into that system, what have been the challenges and what has worked well for you that we can adopt into the poultry value chain?
All right, thank you for that question. Can we have...
Noah, can we try and check for another question maybe?
Yes. Do you have another
Is
question?
there any other question in the room?
Yes, one right
Perfect. Okay, for the meantime, as the question is coming in, please make sure that you fill the evaluation forms on your table and leave them on the table once the sessions are over. We really request you to do that because we value your feedback.
Thank you. My question is mostly in the structured markets or the off-taking, the structured off-taking, we don't have cash payments. I don't know if you do cash payments. So our middlemen are very present because they pay on cash. So how are we taking care of side selling? Because you can have contracted a farmer, but then when I'm a middleman and I come with cash money and my kid have been sent out of school, I'll opt to sell to the middleman. So how are you taking care of the side selling? Thank you.
No, I'll throw it back to you. Actually, there's one more.
Yeah, one more.
Thank you. My name is Mike Oranji. I'm a regional manager, Food and Agriculture Equity Bank, Nairobi. Now, my question is, what are you doing to integrate youth into fish farming? Because I consider this very perfect for our youth.
Kuna mtu mwingine anataka kuongea?
Yes, there's a gentleman right here at the front.
At the front, okay.
By the way, I like your dress. It's very African, yeah? Simpige makofi, that's a nice dress. Come on, guys. Appreciate.
All right, thank you. My name is Moses Sitati from USAID. My question is, touching on the comment that came up on the business of business, of the farmers anyway, is to focus on business. I wanted to ask if we could get comments from the panel on, as much as entrepreneurs, yes, you focus on the business, there is still the interface with the public sector, with the government counterparts. What support capacities or what experiences have you had as from the private sector side engaging with the public counterparts for a more vibrant and stronger business environment? Maybe just your experiences there and areas for growth and improvement.
All right, lovely. I hope we haven't closed anyone out with the 8 minutes that we have.
Yeah, we still have one more.
Still one more. So those will be 5. 5 questions in 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Ivy. I'm a fish farmer in Busia. And my question is to Aquarech. I know he mentioned that he gives a credit period of 90 days for feeds. I've just started the business of fish farming, so what are the terms and conditions for new farmers who are engaging in the business? I understand and I know the feeds are very expensive. Like the financial institutions were being told yesterday they would look at the turnover, but you see, we are new in the business, so I think it would be nice to know. And I can see he said up to 90 days, and fish takes like 9 months to mature and sell. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Allow me to close the Q&A session. Now you can take it over.
All right, thank you very much. So, Dev, you're going to handle the first question and the last question, the opener and the finisher. So, the cooperatives bit that was asked firstly, and also the terms and conditions from Ivy, who's a fish farmer.
So, what has worked between Aquarech Limited and the producer organizations that we have worked with? So, let me give an example. The program that has helped us scale into 4 counties, it's a World Bank program called Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Project. It has a component of, a sub-component called Disruptive Agricultural Technology. And what we are doing through that program is actually working with the farmer producer organizations or producer groups in clusters of farmers that exist in those counties. And through that, what we are doing is, through the group, we are able to identify lead farmers in the group, and using those lead farmers for us is a farmer one who is recording the daily data that we want on the application, and who is following some good aquaculture practices or protocol that we have laid between us and the farmer, and who is actually a real farmer spending time farming the fish. And through that, we are then able to utilize county government physical infrastructure. These are cold chain facilities that have been in existence for almost a decade or 10 years and above, and have never been utilized. So we work with those producer organizations to aggregate fish from them directly and take them to the cold chain facilities. We pay cash for any farmer that we work with in the producer organizations. Now, some of these producer organizations, what you've seen is they negotiate with you the price at which you are buying the fish, and you pay each farmer directly because they are less formally structured, but they exist amorphously as a group. In some cases, where we have one producer organization in Siaya that existed as a group, we have paid a check to the group. But even though the farming was done at individual farmers. So it is still a very complex thing that we are trying to navigate. We are 8 months into the program since we started working with these producer organizations. But so far what we have seen is having a collective discussion with the farmer producer groups has been successful in terms of agreeing even on the price at which they are buying the feed at. And that's what we want to see. Because again, if we enable them to access the feed at an affordable price, they are able to see the impact of what we are saying on the platform. But we are yet to see how it will happen when we meet a producer organization that is an aggregator, right, and has a select group of farmers working under them. It will be a matter of negotiating on the price at which they aggregate the fish and how much we can take the fish that they have aggregated to come to our platform. But it's possible for that. The credit financing that we advance, we have worked with the farmers who are 3 months to harvest. And these farmers who are 3 months to harvest, one thing that we have insisted is that they must be recording certain data daily on the platform. And through that, we are able to track the growth of fish from the time they put the fish in the pond or stock the pond to the time the fish is ready for harvesting. So you are not just going to say, we advance you 20 bags of feed costing $500, right? And we've not seen the way that fish has grown in stages on the application. So from the back end, we are able to track the growth of fish per farm, per cage, or per pond. And through that, it increases your credit rating. The more data you put on that platform, the more credit we can avail to you, because then that one tells us that you are actually feeding the fish, and we are able to see the risk to which we can give you feed or advance of feed to your platform. Side selling of the fish and how do you take care of it? Again, it is strictly through farmer groups, because farmer groups are able to coordinate harvesting of the fish. So that's how we are managing it at the moment. But that's also a reason why we have capped the credit period to strictly 90 days. Hopefully with more data coming on the platform, we can scale it to more months for the production cycle of the farmer.
All right, thank you very much. Phoebe? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kip. I think there are two issues. One is on the COPs, and the other one is about engaging the public sector. All these projects that have attempted to upscale and sustain aquaculture have developed producer groups. Some have been formulated eventually to cooperatives. However, many of them don't survive beyond the project. You find that once the project ceases to exist, a lot of them also cease existence. Now that's a big challenge because a lot of money is put into these projects, and if a lot of money is put in the projects, and the uptakers, who are the public and the business community, do not retain the structures and the systems which were put in place, then it becomes very difficult for us to move forward. So we need to know, well, how can we do it differently, such that at the end of the project, the cooperatives remain in place to continue and sustain that project. About engaging the public, I think is one of the most important things that any project should be able to do, either at multilateral, at the trilateral, or you can't have a project in a country without the mainline ministries. We have to engage them, because in all these projects, aquaculture included, there's a lot of constraints and a lot of challenges. And some of these challenges, the only people who can lift them or ease them mainly comes from the public sector domain. A lot of constraints, infrastructure, even information transfer, technology, all that are lifted by the public sector. You find that the private sector has also its own challenges, like uptaking knowledge, uptaking skills, being able to uptake capacity building. Those are constraints and challenges that can be midwifed by both the development partners and the uptakers, who are the business community. What I meant was that, for example, when the stimulus economic project came to the end, you still found county governments, up to today as I talk, they buy fingerlings for the farmers, they buy feeds for the farmers, they support the farmers to market. Very good. What about tomorrow? These farmers should have commercialized their activities and made sure that those activities are able to earn, are able to grow. And that can only happen if they commercialize it and uptake the responsibility of building their businesses and scaling. It's not right that the government will keep buying for them. The government will also go dry. So we cannot depend on the government restocking for the farmers. Maybe the beginning, like what His Excellency, the late Mwai Kibaki did, was good initiative. We still have results up to now. We still have impacts in place up to now. A last comment, Kip. There are two things in the aquaculture sector. One is about the uptake of artisanal processors. And this is where the women are. The government should be able to create some structures to support the processing of fish at those local low levels. Most of it is quite unhygienic. In many places where they are processed, they don't have structures that are conducive enough to give food safety to the fish and the women in the aquaculture sector. Secondly, I think there's a phenomenon of, what do you call it, a tsunami of e-commerce coming in and emerging. And allow me to brag that Kenya is one of the most blessed countries with e-commerce from the bottom of the pyramid to the top. We should be able also to embrace e-commerce where you can order your fish online, it can be delivered by a boda boda, you pay the boda boda online when I'm seated in Nairobi comfortably. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some of the questions that have been raised, I had to use some because some of the questions, but just talk to us. Which one would you like to respond? I've seen youth integration and also the issue of cash payments and cooperatives.
There's one question that was actually dealing with support to farmers.
Yes.
Yeah. Currently, we are carrying out, we are actually doing a survey that is going to lead to a pilot project that we are carrying out for fish farmers. We are onboarding 300 farmers, and the survey that we carried out actually gave us a response that around about 70% of those who are going to participate were women and youth. And apparently the women who we have actually taken up their credentials and run through our system, we found out that only less than 5% could actually access credit, meaning that they could not actually go through the collateralization process to enable them access credit. That's through our partners, who are AFC. I think I saw Bonano, who was seated here. So we actually talked to the Swedish government through SIDA, and we got support from their implementing wing, that is FSD, Financial Deepening Sector. And we are going to cushion these women and youth who are vulnerable in terms of access to finance to enable them be part of the program. So that is one aspect that we are actually doing to enable farmers access finance. There is also the aspect of access to market, which we are doing through our system that has been developed for export and also for local market at high level. Yeah, so there are those two things, and then there's also capacity building, which we are carrying out with, in partnership with FSD. And also, we are also training farmers on food safety, We are also training them on feeding regimes. We are also training them on water quality measures that they're supposed to take care of in terms of pond management. Yeah, there are a lot of things that we are doing, which I think I might not be able to articulate today.
All right.
But given an opportunity, we will actually talk about it.
Definitely. You've realized that the controller of the screens is very proudly putting up times up, yeah? And we are proudly ignoring, yeah? We're on the last person, don't you worry, okay? Edna, as you finish up, you've seen concerns from a farmer, somebody from a different value chain that they can borrow from their aqua or we can borrow from them. What would you like to address as we finish up?
I would like to address two issues on side selling. Despite having a contract with the aggregators, it doesn't mean that you're not paid cash. The aggregators like Sam here and Dave, they have to pay in cash because they know if they don't do that, you're not going to supply them with the product. So indeed, they make the payments in cash within, I believe, 24 hours for Sam, right? After you, because he has to take the product for testing. They have a laboratory at the facility to ensure quality of the product. So they are paid within 24 hours. Side selling will also be capped by the fact that the broker will not vouch for you when you're going to the bank to ask for a loan. However, showing that you have a contract with an aggregator and there's a track record of how much you've been paid, how much you've invoiced, say, over time, that actually makes you bankable and makes you get a loan for other things. You know, it just doesn't have to be for the, just for the business itself. So that curbs the issue of side selling. When you talk about integrating the youth in fish farming, it's a challenge because we know most of financiers have normally request for title deeds or logbooks, and this our young people really do not have. They've not had enough chances or probably enough time to be able to amass property. So for that, we advocate for the youth forming groups whereby they guarantee each other. These guarantees are what is used as collateral. And we are also working with financial institutions to recognize the different sectors and just to understand the sector. If you understand a particular sector, then you can be able to fund it, you know? We can work together to mitigate the risks that are there. And it's more, again, on advocacy with everybody, the producers, the government, financial institutions, and all that. So another thing that attracts the youth to fish farming is now there's information. There's a lot of information out there. You know what you need to do, you know how you need to feed your fish, you know all that stuff. You know the kind of stock, the brood stock you have to have in order to end up operating as efficiently as possible. One more thing, yes, there's been a lot of dependence on aid, but our work as business advisors, and I believe my colleague Phoebe can attest to it, is transitioning the businesses to become more independent, more commercialized, because that's the only way we can sustain our economy. Moving from non-commercialized funding to commercialized funding gives you, it makes you more accountable. It gives you the drive to do better, you know? And that's the driving force of our economy, I believe. So, closing remarks?
Of course.
That was just responding to the questions.
My friends, I'll just be honest with the timekeeper. Timekeeper, will you add us just 5 minutes? Yeah? Just 5 minutes. Yeah? Closing remarks, we go that way, then we finish. You see the way you... Time is up. Please
We've
proceed.
not had enough.
Edna.
We can go on and on clearly.
Please.
All right. We'd just like to, encourage basically the investors to look at this sector differently, because the aquaculture sector addresses national and global challenges. You know, while doing this, we're addressing these challenges while making money for those in the business of making money, and that's important. We're addressing the challenges of food security. We're talking about SDGs like no poverty. We're talking about gender equality because fish farming is inclusive. It takes care of women, men, youth, every group is taken care of. We're talking about climate action, you know? We're talking about the issues of life below water. We would like to work as advisors and as AfriScope, we would like to work with every actor in the value chain to just make sure we make this sector sustainable, scalable, and we'd like to see a new wave of financing coming into the sector. So, yeah, we're open to work with anybody and everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Sam, your closing remarks briefly. You see you have 4 minutes, so in less than a minute, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Currently, the per capita fish for Kenya stands at 3 kilos per head per year. The global per capita is at 20 kilos per head per year. Nigeria has around 40 per head per year. I think that the deficit that we have is as a result of lack of structures that have not been put in place in terms of investments, which personally as a businessman, I might not be able to put in terms of capacity building of farmers, in terms of cold chain infrastructure, in terms of quality feeds, in terms of training of these farmers, and most importantly, access to finance, which needs to be looked at because, as I've said even earlier, most of these farmers are women, and when it comes to collateral, they don't possess title deeds. And we need to make sure that they have the financing that is required because the sector is bankable and it has a future. And I think that fish business is a business that has a cycle that is better than other value chains. If it is actually managed well and given the right thoughts in terms of investments and also support of the other sectors.
All right,
yes,
thank you very much. Dave, please.
Thank you. We intend to launch Aquarage Fish outlets and distribution in Nairobi in December. And I hope you will be our first customers to taste the fish. Tell us how our farmers' fish tastes like. This will be fish that will be produced by Aquarage Fish Farmers, the 2,000 that we have on the platform, and we are still looking at growing more. We are restructuring even the ponds and the cages so that we can move farmers from peasant fish farming to small commercial farms. And by doing so, make it more profitable for the farmers. And we're in the process of fundraising. Thanks to AfriScope, we have worked very well. They have connected us through the Kenya Investment Mechanism to various investors who have invested in us, and we are still looking for more. So thank you very much, and I can't wait to bring Aquarage Fish to Nairobi in December, hopefully before Christmas.
Yeah, we can't wait to have Aquarage Fish. Amazing. Begin him a coffee. Don't clap half-heartedly. We need the fish to arrive. He might change his mind. He said, they didn't even clap for me. I'm not bringing fish. Anyway, thank you very much, Dave. And finally, Phoebe.
Thank you, Kip. I think aquaculture is one of the most virgin subsector of agriculture. There's a huge potential for exhausting the natural resources that we have in Kenya. We need to put a few things right. One is the taxation of the equipment to develop aquaculture. 2 is taxation regimes of equipment to develop aquaculture. 3, all the farmers who are farming aquaculture should be able to come together to have their acts right, to be able to have a voice, to engage with the government, to address the issues that the government can lift. 4th, continuous research to give us development and better species of fish to farm. I think the land use also is an issue. By the way, the women are not the farmers. The women are the workers on these ponds. The men are the farmers. The women work for these men. Finally, the issue of transfer of knowledge and skills. We should be able to embrace that very well and uptake the knowledge and skills that is being transferred to the farmers and to all the actors within the value chain. It's a virgin value chain. Please, if you feel like doing business, step into the aquaculture. There's a lot of potential. If Egypt is doing it without a single drop of water, what can Kenya do with 10 water bodies in the country? Thank you.
Wow, amazing. I appreciate my panelists. At the far end, we have Phoebe Ward, Chief Executive Officer, Lamero Consult, Mpigeni makofi tafadhali. Yes, next to her we have Devo Ketch from Aquarage. Yeah, don't call it Aquarec, Mpigeni makofi tafadhali. Next to him we have Samuel Ondiek from DS Group. And finally we have Edna Odalo, MD Afriscope Limited. Once again, I appreciate my wonderful panel. Yes, the time is up and we are done with the panel. How do you feel? I feel a lot of just freedom. I just feel like flying away from here and buying Aquarage fish. All right, so let us be on our feet even as our panelists stand up. Walk to your neighbor and tell them, this is my greatest takeaway from the fish dish. Even amongst you, this is my greatest takeaway from the fish dish. Speak to your neighbor. We should dance. DJ, some music, please. Thank you very much. Amazing, amazing panel. Have you spoken to your neighbor? All right, lovely. I know we have youth in aquaculture. They don't know these old dances. You can have your seat. Thank you very much. Asante sana, Mr. DJ. God bless you. My name is Noah Kipkemboy. I've been your moderator for the fish dish, and hopefully we shall meet during dinner as we have some fish. At this particular moment, I'd like to hand over to Kevins. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noah Kipkemboy. Could we just give Noah some hearty clap for ending our last panel segment in such an energetic way? Noah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that particular session. All right, we've come to the last segment of what we'd planned up for the past 2 days of the Kenya Investment Mechanism Learning Event 2022, themed access and impact, featuring lessons across multiple sectors from technology, keywords, business advisory service providers, financial institutions. We started up our sessions yesterday, and I believe there's been so much that we've captured across for the entire last 2 days. And mine here is just to say thank you very much to Kim for coordinating those right about 7 sessions. And I just want to immediately just take it to Lucas and George. So Lucas, for any person interacting with Lucas for the first time, is Lucas Barak is the Monitoring and Evaluation Director at the USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism. And we have Mr. George Mbithi, who is the Communications Director at USAID Kenya Investment Mechanism. Could we encourage the big 2 boys to get on stage with some probably just hearty claps to encourage them? So George and Lucas, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, team, What a day we have had. What a learning event we have had. We are here with my colleague Lucas to just give a few highlights of what transpired today. Maybe for someone who has just joined for the last session, we started the day with looking at private sector perspectives on investment landscape in the country. And this session, where the speaker really brought out how government should actually engage with the private sector, and she used a case study of Mauritius, and she illustrated that the state has got a role to play in tapping into a country's comparative advantage. In this case, in the case of Mauritius, she gave the example of how this country looked at the sugar industry, and she elaborated how the country looked at the sugar industry to enhance its economy and become a high-income country in Africa. The state is an important enabler and has the responsibility to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive and grow, both large, small, and micro. Lucas, what stood up for you at the Mombasa County session, which followed?
Yeah, thanks so much, George. It has indeed been a very productive day, a lot of learning, very appreciated. Yeah, for Mombasa session from the county government of Mombasa, the session, of course, highlighted Mombasa County perspectives and lessons learned in their collaboration, a journey with the Kenya Investment Mechanism, from the talk that Tendai Mtana gave, very interesting insights there. And he also pointed out the stereotype that it is difficult to get things moving in the counties, which is the perception that sometimes people have. We need to create a culture where the government works irrespective of political ups and downs, and that is a commitment really from the government side, that even when we go into political periods of elections, work must continue. That was quite interesting. And he also emphasized that local enterprises work within an ecosystem and need legal frameworks that establish an enabling environment for them to thrive. And that is really the role of the government, providing an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And also, of course, they require business advisors, very important. They require business advisors who understand the differentiators within each ecosystem, because they are not the same.
Thank you, Lucas. And after the Mombasa session, we listened to Ronald talking about the National Credit Guarantee Scheme that has been established to help MSMEs to access credit. I was really touched to know that this used to be a dream for very many years. And then now finally, because of COVID, something positive from COVID. Because of COVID, we were pushed to be able to launch this credit guarantee. And the results that he elaborated, how the credit guarantee has been able to be rolled out. It is now, they have 7 participating financial institutions, and they are actually tapping into this guarantee to extend loans to qualifying SMEs out here. As we know, MSMEs often face challenges when it comes to access to finance for their operations and growth. Some of the reasons for this include inadequate collateral, information asymmetry, and information management practices that make them unattractive to lenders. And Kenya Investment Mechanism has been working with the National Treasury to develop this guarantee. We supported the National Treasury to review the processes, and now we have not only launched, but we are scaling the credit guarantee. And as we heard from Ronald, there are some really amazing results that are coming from there. Yes, Lucas, for the next session.
Yeah, so we went to the policy session. This is where we were talking about, initially we started with the work around the capital markets, the work that is happening there. And the moderator pointed out that there is a general lack of knowledge and fear of how the capital markets operate. That's something that stood out. And many businesses are afraid of having to cede control to shareholders. This is something that came up that kind of inhibits higher uptake of the capital markets as a source of capital, patient capital.
And then the panel also served to demystify the perception that capital markets are elitist, or impossible to access by SMEs. They also noted that there are large pools of capital, within the capital markets available to SMEs, but the lack of products, opportunities, and a regulatory framework environment has kept this capital out of the reach of SMEs that need it. And also, we had Amish coming in to state confidently, there is an opportunity coming up, there is a financial revolution on the way. A new framework has been drafted with Kim's support that will make eligibility requirements for SMEs simpler and easier to meet. Once the legislation is in place and specific stakeholders deliver, there is no reason why SMEs in 2023 cannot access capital markets going forward. And the panel also noted the need or the role for BASPs and what they are playing in helping SMEs to become investment ready. Packaging the basic documentation and developing of prospectus, which is important when you are listing at the NSE, so that they can be listed at the capital markets. Yeah, so this came out, and we are really looking forward to that opportunity.
Okay, and from the, after that we had the presentation by KEPFIC, Kenya Pension Fund Investment Consortium, and what stood out is how this consortium is really consolidating or just pooling resources from pension funds and help them to actually invest in big-time infrastructure opportunities. And as we like to say, it's like a case of Kenyans investing in their own future. And so that was really a very good way of how KEPFIC is working. And they gave a good example of the latest success, a Lot 3 bond, that they raised 5.1 billion Kenya shillings, which was really like double the expectation that they had. This is double what they were looking for. This really shows the hunger for pension funds to be able to allow their resources to be put in large-scale long-term investment opportunities. Yes, over to you, Lucas.
Yeah, thanks, Georgia. And then we went to the BASP session, partnerships between BASPs and FIs. And some of the things that came up is, of course, the information asymmetry, the gaps in terms of, what FIs know, what enterprises know. And this is a barrier when it comes to accessing finance by most of the Kenyan SMEs. That stood out. And it also came up, BASPs play a very important role in helping SMEs and FIs to speak the same language. And the partnership between BASPs and FIs is yielding a lot of fruit. That is something that came up. So for the BASPs, forming sustainable relationships with the FIs helps to identify, and the FI that is best suited for the businesses they support. So identifying the right FI for the business. And for the FIs, the BASPs make their work easier because SMEs come already packaged according to their financial requirements. And of course, we concluded this part by looking at the future, the possibility of having the FIs pay the BASPs for bringing them good business in the form of quality, bankable transactions, something that we are looking forward to.
Yes, that is the future that we would like to see, bridging the gap between the BASPs and the FIs, whereby FIs really appreciate the role BASPs play, and they pay them for the transactions that they are bringing. This was the last session about fish dish, and the fish dish, what stood out is really the opportunity that this new sector is bringing up, and the issue of technology is becoming really an empowerment, a big deal for fish farmers in the country. Tech players like Aquarage are using technology to disrupt the aquaculture sector, and by making the sector more productive, profitable, and inclusive. And with that, the moderator introduced us as the two big boys. Now I want to turn to the biggest boy to come and actually say a thank you. Yes, Roger. Thank you very much. And over to you, Roger.
Thank you, George. Look, I realize that at this particular stage, I'm standing between you and having some good networking time, maybe go to the bar and have a nice juice or coffee or tea or something. And so my role is really quite simple. For those of you still with us online, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for participating. For all of you still in the room, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a really exciting time, and I just want to ask for just a little appreciation to the Kenyan Investment Mechanism team and our advisors who have helped put this production on. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that they've made it look seamless, so please give them a round of applause. Thank you, Kenyan Investment Mechanism team, and thank you, Kevin's and your team, so much for your help. With that, we'll call this closed for this year, and we look forward to talking to you about lessons learned again next year. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, the entire team. I believe the conference is closed. Have a blessed time. Yeah. Lulu, do you want to say hi to the audience?
Are we going for fish?
Gilbert.